Welcome back, ChangeMakers. This week we are continuing our conversation about alliances as part of our Mechanics as Metaphor series. If you haven't already, you should check out our last video, which was all about kind of player alliances and character development, and how that kind of tied into helping drive the narrative forward. This week we're going to be talking more about a kind of meta mechanics of how players can interact with each other and how alliances can help form that kind of social experience and give you some direction on where to go. So, picking up from last week, from our last video, we were playing with these two characters. The players that these characters were representing were coming to a head on how best to come up with a solution for a certain problem that they were having. So the reason I want to bring this up in today's video is because if these two got a little too heated or they got a little too invested in their characters or what have you, it may result in a thing called emotional bleed. And emotional bleed is actually really important when you're talking about alliances and social play in role-playing games. This is mostly because actually, let's take a step back. Emotional bleed, what actually is it? So emotional bleed is when a player connects too strongly to their character, even for a moment, and they end up feeling what their character is feeling, and they end up getting angry with another player because of that. It's just tie-ins from the narrative to get tied into the player, and the player ends up expressing that. It's often very irrational. It doesn't really match with what the player believes in a lot, but it can happen pretty frequently, actually. And it's a great example of how role-playing can create real moments for people. So when working with kids, like ChangeMakers is doing, letting kids explore that social play in a way that is still a safe environment where they can make those mistakes and figure out how to work their way through it. They can recognize that, hey, there's a separation between players and characters and things like that, and all matter a lot. And alliances tie into this because it gives them a little bit more structure to how they should be addressing these issues. It gives them some more words to work with when they're talking about why they like something or why they don't, why they're getting angry at something, or why their characters might be feeling the way that they're feeling. So emotional bleed is one way to talk about social play for RPGs. The other side of why we would want to include alliances on a more meta scale for players is to provide some of that structure so that they can have arguments or discussions, or they can get into a more antagonistic situation in a safer space, and they can learn how to disagree with each other in a way that's productive. Because ChangeMakers is talking a lot about historical concepts and stories, and it's aimed at kids, we want to make sure that they don't have to be part of the same group. Traditional RPGs will kind of expect you, because you're sitting at the table, it is expected that you are all part of the same, your characters are all together because they are. And ChangeMakers wants to kind of question that a little bit more. So we add in alliances, we add in things like ethics. This ties into earlier mechanics we talked about as well. And we just want to make sure that players have all of the tools they would need to be able to set up a sound argument or a sound idea of who their character is, so that when they approach these issues, they know where to attack it from, or they know that something is off, and they can think a little more critically about these kind of things, and all of that. The last reason that we wanted to include alliances on kind of this more meta level was because we are aiming for classrooms a little bit. So part of this is being able to separate players into groups. If you have 20 students, getting through each and every student and trying to ask them, what are you going to do, can slow the game down a lot, and everybody gets one move and then it's over. So we wanted to make sure that these players could all have fun together. So instead we make it more about group discussions. And again, we're tying more into social play, and we're tying more into how to have conversations with people, and bring out your ideas and be able to make change. How does this stuff happen? And it happens through talking to each other. um, so for this, we have 3 major groups that we can separate players into. And this also works for smaller groups occasionally. So you can also have a group of 2 and a group of 3, and you can talk about it that way, or seeing it from those perspectives as well. But our 3 groups are familial relationships. So your, say your settlers heading out west on the Oregon Trail, your family unit of 4 to 5 players, and each of you had your own little moments, and you can kind of work together that way. But you have one designated leader who you will talk to, and they will figure that out. The second option is more a kind of democratic union, or an autocratic union, or whatever kind of union you really want to have, where you have a designated leader and everybody else is kind of cabinet member to that group. So as opposed to a familial group where anybody could chime in, and it's just kind of expected that you have a leader, because that's how RPGs tend to work, and social play tends to work. You'll end up with a natural leader. But in this democratic style, you will be forced to have a designated leader, and that designated leader is the voice of the group, unless you choose to overthrow them or whatever. But those are minor rules. The final group that we have is a little more loose. This is more the Model UN style, where players may be in smaller groups. Like these 2 players are the representatives of Portugal, and these 2 players are the representatives of Singapore or something like that. And they get to have their conversations, and they get to work with each other to bring out those things. Or this group is a coalition of 3 different countries, so they can have those kind of conversations and see how they can interact with each other in that way. This one is probably the most common for educational role-playing games, where they'll just give you pre-generated character sheets that just have like some basic talking points that they know they need to hit in order to be able to accurately role-play their characters. This is certainly a method that ChangeMakers can do, but we just have a little bit more structure behind it. That is all we have for this week. In our next video, we are going to be talking about tokens, and this will help wrap up our Mechanics of Metaphor series. Please like and subscribe to us. That way you can get updates when we upload these videos. We also have links to Facebook and Twitter. Those are in the description, along with our email, if you ever have any questions or anything like that. We look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Bye.